Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. Let's talk about the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery. It was called Choose to Live. As it starts, a dilithium shipment is stolen by Navarian Qowat Milat nuns who kill a Starfleet officer. Then, at a seemingly unnecessary in-person conference, and via some absurd dialogue, the Federation and Navarre presidents, along with the Qowat Milat, pretty much demand that the leader of the thieves whom they've identified be brought in alive under Qowat Milat guidance, which the Admiral agrees to. And of course, Michael, who was at this in-person meeting for no logical reason, is sent on the hunt for the thief leader. Tilly talks with Saru about how she's struggling with some issues and how she needs to go outside her comfort zone, which she did in a way that seemed a little too personal for a Starfleet officer talking to anyone but an official counselor. Like, these kinds of conversations took place on Next Gen, but it was usually between the officer and Counselor Troi, or it was between officers of a similar rank and their close friends. I know that Tilly and Saru are close, but in other words, they wouldn't be. He was a commander when she was an ensign, and then he was a captain when she was an ensign, and their relationship should not be close, like discussing feelings close. It just shouldn't be. Yet on this show it is. So I don't know. Saru discloses in this same scene that his people are about to venture back into space, and that's probably going to come up later. Next, a Trill Guru arrives on Discovery via hologram and talks with Adira and Gray about transferring Gray's consciousness to the synth body, which apparently is complicated by it being entwined with Adira, which I guess makes sense, but why is Gray any different in that regard than, say, other past Trill hosts' consciousnesses? And why would a Trill Guru need to be present? Maybe because the transfer affects the symbiote, whose permission he verifies was given, but he seemed to be there to fulfill a mystical purpose, kind of like the Vulcan priestess did in Star Trek 3 when she performed Fal Torpan.
Fal Torpan.
To, reunite Spock's Katra with his body by transferring it out of McCoy's head. I guess her name was T'Pau.
July.
Or she was T'Pau. Was T'Pau the one who officiated the wife, the marriage in Amok Time, or was she the bride? The bride was T'Pring. T'Pel? Was it T'Pel?
July.
Anyway, Star Trek 3, the Vulcan priestess,
July.
does a consciousness transfer from
McCoy to Spock.
But she touches the two of them to do it. So if this guy was just there to say words that would just serve a ceremonial purpose, kind of like when you sing happy birthday to someone, it's a ceremonial function. That's fine. But if he was there to serve a mystical purpose, unless what he's doing is magic and happens by the mere utterance of words, which isn't even how magic tends to work in fiction. You have to, it physically, it happens in the environment you're in. So I don't know that you can, I don't know. Magic also works at a distance in fiction. So I don't know. But anyway, the Trill aren't magic to my knowledge in Star Trek anyway. So why was he there? It seemed like he didn't need to be there. It seemed tacked on and stupid. Anyway, Tilly is recommended for a mission by Saru because he thinks that the mission will suit her need to experience things outside her comfort zone. So she, Michael, and Michael's mom, along with some Qowat Milat nuns, take book ship to find the thief. But Mama Burnham makes Michael and Tilly use swords instead of phasers, not to alarm the thieves. In other words, we don't want to seem like we're in their face, so let's not use weapons that are stronger than theirs. Let's carry their same weapon. Like, really? I mean, to no one's surprise, this went badly when they're jumped. But fortunately, the skill of the nuns, was enough to subdue the thieves, because Michael might be decent with a sword, but not against the Qowat Mulat necessarily, and Tilly was completely useless with a sword. So, I don't know, it just seemed dumb. Michael et al. Then continued chasing the thief leader and beamed down to a small moon.
That's no moon.
It's actually a ship carrying a hibernating species, which the Starfleet database, doesn't recognize, despite it containing all of that mighty sphere data, which I wasn't buying. For some reason, Gray's consciousness seems to be either lost forever, like just winked out of existence, or is just floating around Discovery or somewhere near Gray's synth body, lost in terms of direction after the transfer, and hasn't made it to the synth body. And I suspect it's because nobody and no tech, which had any power to put it there or direct it there, was in physical contact with Adira and Gray's new body, which, duh, how are you going to affect the transfer without both parties being touched by a technology that's going to accomplish it, or a being that's going to accomplish it? How is that going to work? Of course it didn't work. Well, the fact that it was having trouble working was not a surprise. Let's put it that way. Back on the little ship where Michael is, the mystery species are apparently called Aronians, and the thief leader took up their cause, which was arriving at a new world to colonize, upon the psychic request of one of them who was dying after some kind of attack that the thief leader witnessed. And Michael wants to work to fix their cryosystems so that the thief leader, will consider her mission fulfilled without having to move the ship out of the potential path of the anomaly, which is what she had stolen the dilithium to facilitate, without revealing their existence to anyone. Because I guess she wasn't able to move them to the planet to avoid the anomaly. And Michael's hope is that upon accomplishing this, the thief leader will release her mother from Knife Point, and Michael, of course, is able to do this, allowing the Aronians to colonize the planet, which, by the way, is now still in the potential path of the anomaly, which could destroy the planet as easily as it could have destroyed the ship and Book's planet. Like, what? How does that make any sense? Their fate is now their own? Is that the deal? And so the nun lady was satisfied? I don't know. Meanwhile, Book gets to relive a memory via mind meld with the Navarin president when she asks to join his mind to look for clues about the anomaly in his memory of having experienced it. And when she doesn't find anything that she can work with, and is asked to help him look at his last memory of his brother and nephew, he sees that his nephew did realize that Book loved him, and it brings Book some peace, which was actually pretty cool. They do end up putting some things in these episodes that are cool human moments, so I can't deny them, any and all credit. They do stuff in these episodes that's good, but the thief leader is then given over to Navarre to deal with, to Michael's dismay, as she'd hoped she'd be dealt some Federation justice for killing an officer. But the Admiral convinces Michael that the Federation president's instinct that playing along with Navarre will incline them more towards Federation membership, which will likely benefit millions, is an instinct that Starfleet is duty bound to trust. And this took place in a scene that I thought was very well done and which made complete sense. Oddly enough, in an episode in a series that often doesn't make sense. This was, again, one of those moments where the writers did a thing that you go, I get that. That was a cool conversation that was had, and it's a cool scenario that they've built into the show where, hey, the Federation is rebuilding. They need Navarre, and they're going to play politics with Navarre the way they need to play politics to get them in. And that makes complete sense. That's something that happens in the real world, in diplomatic negotiations, in diplomatic scenarios. So I thought that was fine. And they wrote it in a way that used metaphor, and it was an apt metaphor. So it was a good scene. It was good writing, but and you know what? I totally believe that the woman playing the Federation president is a president. I totally believe it. Between this episode and the last episode that she was in, she plays that part like they cast an actual president of something and said, hey, you're a president of this. You know what presidenting is. Play this part. She's great. When I'm looking at her on the screen, that's the Federation president to me. I believe her 100% that she's the president of the Federation. That's not to say that I don't believe the other actors in their parts, but I think she does a job at portraying the character that's a step above the job that the other actors are doing. She is the Federation president to me. So that's another positive about this show. But the positives are so few and far between. It's unfortunate. It really is. Anyway, to no one's surprise, again, Gray's consciousness finds his new synth body and an emotional scene ensues. Book shares news of his newfound path to healing his pain with Michael. And that, again, was very human and something that you're going to find in any drama that's any good. You're going to find scenes like that. So good for them. All they need to do now is work on the other 85 to 90% of the show to make it good. And you have to give them credit for things that they've attempted to do or that they are attempting to do, even though they don't necessarily work, because the attempt is meaningful. They tried to do something in this episode, thematically, both in regard to Tilly and the thief leader, with the whole idea of following a path that you're called to follow or feel like you should follow, but also knowing when you've reached the end of that particular path and, it's time to change paths. And how to know when you're on a path that's correct. But I don't think they carried it off very well. I found that their attempt at this kind of fell flat. So that's unfortunate, but I did want to give them credit for trying, and I did want to, make anybody who's seeing this review aware of the fact that I saw the attempt, and that I'm not just poo-pooing the show to poo-poo it. I did see that they tried to do that, but I didn't think it worked. And the other thing that this show suffers from, which I've said before, and which other shows suffer from, mostly serialized shows, is too many plots. The Adira Gray plot, the book PTSD plot, the Tilly plot, the main plot, there's too much going on. There's even kind of a plot woven in there with Stamets, where he was kind of feeling badly about his past behavior and wanting to make amends or try to be better, that I thought they had written in there too. And it's like, there's too much going on in each episode. Across a season of TNG, they would deal with different issues that that some of the characters were having. but it wouldn't be part of every episode. Like they're carrying out this Adira Gray plot over the course of the season by including a moment or two intercut with other scenes in every episode. And it just, to me, it ruins the flow of the episode. Like, I don't necessarily have an objection to seeing that plot play out across the season, but could you maybe only show moments from that plot every fourth episode instead of every episode? Like, you know what I'm saying? And the reason they don't is because they only have 16 episodes, right? Instead of 22 or 27. And the reason they have that is because the episodes are way expensive because of how much they're spending on, effects, and because they know the main plot can't go that long because it doesn't have enough legs. So they, again, have to work in these, first of all, they have to come up with these other plots, and they have to work a moment or two about each of those plots into every episode because of the way they're doing the show. If the show were episodic, like The Orville, which, by the way, also includes plots that stretch out over a season, they wouldn't have to do that. I don't know. And, it could just be that they're sucky writers because, Lost in Space for 3 seasons was a really good show, and it was serialized. And they did have various plots going at the same time. But somehow it was better by a lot. So I don't know. I don't know. This show is not hitting its stride. It's not improving very much to me over the course of 4 seasons. I don't know. It's really all I have to say about this episode. I'll be back with a review of the next one after it's released. Until then, I wish you all peace and long life.